Prophet ﷺ, but definitely from the Sahaba, that in the khutbah, somewhere in the second khutbah of the Friday, it's very usual to hear the khatib reciting this particular verse as part of his second khutbah. And it's a verse in Surah An-Nahl, the 16th chapter of the Qur'an, verse 90. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَعْمُرُ بِالْعَدْلِ وَالْإِحْسَانِ وَإِيتَاءِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى وَيَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنْكَرِ وَالْبَغْيِ يَعِظُكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَذَكَّرُونَ. Indeed, Allah enjoins upon you justice, excellence in all things, and being charitable to relatives and those and kinsmen, and forbids you from indecency, wickedness, and oppression. يَعِظُكُمْ. This does he exhort you or remind you, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَذَكَّرُونَ, that you may take heed. And the reason that this verse is very often recited at in the second khutbah, in fact right towards the end more often than not, is for the similar reason that the khatib, following in the footsteps of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, who would quite often do this in their sermons, wants to remind the audience, whatever he's spoken about before, he wants to remind the audience of the generality of Islam. What's Islam in a nutshell? And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu said about this verse, Surah Nahl, Allah has enjoined upon you justice, adl, ihsan, excellence in all things, wa ita'i dhil qurba, and giving to the relatives and those closely related to you. Wa yanha, and prohibits you, anil fahsha, indecencies, normally related to sexual indecencies. Munkar, wickedness, all types of wickedness. Wal baghi is like dhulm, oppression. Okay. Ibn Mas'ud says about this verse, Inna ajma'a ayatin fil Qur'an fi surati Nahl. The most comprehensive verse in the Qur'an is in the chapter Surah An-Nahl, and then he recited Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsan, because more or less it sums up the whole of Islam. Allah enjoins upon you justice. Okay, justice is putting the right thing in the right place at the right time. The highest form of justice is tawheed, giving to Allah his due and not giving his due to someone else, which will be shirk. Okay, and then let's say giving the parents their due and not giving the due or the rights that belong to parents to other than the parents. Giving the scholars their due and their rights, not taking the rights of the scholars and giving them to ourselves, arrogating them to ourselves or someone else. Okay, justice is putting the right thing in the right place at the right time. Injustice is putting something in other than its proper place, they say. So you have this justice. Then, well, ihsan, being kind and doing excellent things. And whatever we do it with excellence, and we only do things that are good, keeping away from things that are bad. Okay? Wa ita'i dhil qurba, and whatever else of charity we're doing, but those who are related to us by blood, by the fact that they are blood, have a greater right over us. It doesn't matter if my best friend is such and such, but by blood, because we choose our friends. Allah chooses our relatives. He chooses our blood relations. And the choices of Allah have got to be taken more seriously. Even though my best friend is not my blood relation, cousin or whatever sibling. That's fine. But then there are certain rights. So you can see why this is comprehensive. And that's character. وَيَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ, and he prohibits you from shameful deeds, indecencies. The internet is full of indecencies. And as men and women, we have to guard ourselves against that. Sometimes the indecencies can be normalized. Sometimes indecencies can be normalized. Society one time considered something indecent, and then a decade or two or a generation or two later, those indecencies aren't really indecencies. And so the heart, instead of rejecting the wrong, becomes accustomed to the wrong. And maybe a little while later, the heart actually joins in with the wrong, not thinking too much of it. It's one of the wisdoms of why we don't extol our sins, because the fear is that the sins become normalized. We do an Oprah or whoever else is current in, telling your sad life story to the viewers, and then even the most indecent, reprehensible attitude or acts garner sympathy, right? And then garner sympathy, the moral righteousness has been eroded, and then it becomes like a house of cards tumbling down, and next thing you know that we're in 21st century modernity. Okay, so Islam goes out of its way to make sure that let's make sure that we don't go down that road, because perhaps we can see from where other people have gone what could also happen to us as a community. So indecencies, munkar, just wrongdoing, sins as a whole. Wal baghi, a specific type of sin which involves an oppression. So like drinking wine isn't an oppression against others, it's a personal sin. Okay, but baghi is where there is an oppression, a denial of right, a harming someone without due license from God or from the law. That type of tyranny, and of course tyranny has grades. We may rail against the tyranny, the political tyranny of shabby tyrants ruling over people, and we've had the Muslim majority countries in modern history have had their fair share of shabby tyrants. But one could be a tyrant in a sense of a father or a husband in the family, whereby everyone around me has to tiptoe on tiptoe around me, or tread on eggshells, as they say, because we don't want to get dad to unleash his temper, because it's like a whirlwind, and everyone comes in, they come, children are school and they're all happy and whatever, and wife is whatever chatting with her friends, and the husband comes home and the whole demeanor changes. Well, husband thinks falsely that he's ruling the roost, but this person is so far away from the Sunnah, and the best thing that he could do is to realize that he is so far away from the Sharia and the Sunnah. So there are levels of tyranny as well. Parents can be tyrannical to children. Children can be tyrannical to parents, but parents could be tyrannical to children. So there are levels of tyranny. It's not just think in the political sense. A denial of someone's right is possibly a level of tyranny, even though it may not be a great level. So that's a comprehensive, and we should live by that verse. What I like